Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm very excited to be sharing with you my favorite fragrances in my collection. I actually had asked you guys if you wanted to see a video like this. I believe it was in my Christmas gift guide video. I mentioned a few of my favorite fragrances, I believe around 5 of my favorites, as possible gift ideas, and many of you had actually requested in the comment section of that video to see a video of more of my favorites from my wider collection, so I decided to do just that. So in this video I'm going to be sharing with you 4 categories because there are quite a few fragrances. I think there's more than 15 fragrances in this video, so I decided to split it up into 4 categories. They are actually here in front of me, but one of the categories is fresh fragrances that smell very clean. The next one is for more of my characteristic fragrances, the ones that smell a little bit bolder and the ones that if you get are a little bit more niche to some extent. And then I've got my more oud-like fragrances. I've only got 2 in that category because I don't often go for oud, but there are 2 types that I really like. And then I have 2 on the more sweeter side. Now I don't usually opt for super sweet fragrances, but there are 2 that fall within that category, so I thought I would share them in this video. As always, as much as I can, I will leave all of these fragrances linked down below. Some of them are at a higher price point than others, but I may also leave down below some similar alternatives, although it's kind of hard to know what the similar alternatives are unless I've tried them. But if, for example, any of you have tried any of the fragrances and you know other alternatives, then you can definitely leave them in the comment section so that anyone who's looking for them can actually go ahead and find them. As always, you can also find me over on Instagram and TikTok, which as always I'll leave on the screen now and in the description box of this video. But with that being said, I do just want to jump straight on into this video because it's a slightly different style of video than those that I usually make, but it's actually one that I'm very excited about because I love speaking about my favorite fragrances. Despite the fact that I said fresh first, I actually thought I would start off with my more characteristic, bolder fragrances. One thing I forgot to mention is that across all of these fragrances, I would say that they are the type of fragrances that will help you to feel and smell more put together. I do like to match the fact that I do pay attention to what I'm wearing. I like to invest in pieces that I really like, and so I do like to match that up with a fragrance that I think also elevates my style. I think my number one fragrance that I absolutely love, that I also mentioned in the Christmas gift guide video, Clive Christian Cashmere Musk from the Private Collection. This is by far my most used fragrance in a long time. Now this fragrance for me is one that I do think I will keep on getting again and again because I like using it as a base. Even when I'm mixing my fragrances, which I do a lot of, I layer a lot of my fragrances just so that I can get something a little bit more unique and niche. All in all, this fragrance is already quite a niche fragrance. It's also on the higher end of price point. However, this is definitely one that you don't come across as often. I will leave all the notes for the fragrances on the screen so that you know exactly what they are to smell like. It's a very sort of niche fragrance, yes, but it's a very warm, put together. I do think it smells better on the skin. I actually do have it sprayed on today mixed in with my Victoria Beckham, and again it's great for layering. It's quite an unproblematic fragrance, meaning you can actually layer it with quite a variety of fragrances. On the paper here it's very fresh to start off with, but I actually wouldn't describe it as fresh. I would say it's more on the fresh warm. By fresh I just mean it smells very clean, not in that sort of like cottony smell that you usually get with fragrances. I do think the dry down of this fragrance is what I really enjoy about it, because every time I wear this I get so many compliments. I'm almost done with this bottle actually, but I would describe it as a very warm person, so someone that's like trustworthy, but someone who's extremely put together. You do feel like you know what they're doing. But I would recommend this one if you are okay with spending a little bit more on your fragrances and you want that put together scent, but not the type that you usually can smell off on other people. But then again, this dries down so uniquely on every single person. Another fragrance that I've been using a lot recently, and I forgot to actually research what the notes for this are, so I'll put it on the screen so that I don't get it wrong. It definitely has sort of like a bit of tobacco, and it might be either vanilla or tonka bean. This is the 2150 Reverie by Victoria Beckham. It is one that I recently got and actually have been using quite often. I've been mixing this in with my Clive Christian because I'm not that much into tobacco-y vanilla scents on their own, but when I mix this with Clive Christian, it gives a unique twist to it. One of my top tips actually would be, if you are able to pick up a Clive Christian, I would check out a lot of their other scents as well, but in particular Cashmere Musk is pretty much everyone who tries out Clive Christian loves Cashmere Musk. So what I would recommend is, if you want to pick this up and you're able to pick this up, you can mix this with other fragrances that don't cost you as much, and it naturally will give you a very unique twist to that fragrance. So actually I can smell it really well with the Victoria Beckham fragrance here. This tobacco-y, it actually reminds me a lot of the lobby or the entrance area of the Londoner Hotel. I don't know why, but it smells exactly like this. It's sort of like if you are looking for a vanilla scent, but not overly vanilla, because I don't really like vanilla scent, but you like it mixed in with a little bit of something that smells smoky. I would actually even go down to say that this actually definitely could be unisex, similar to the Clive Christian, and actually a lot of these fragrances are, if I was to describe it in 2 words, characteristic vanilla. So if you don't want typical vanilla, you want something that's still vanilla-y, still a little bit sweet, but has a little bit more depth and smokiness, this is one that I would go for. It definitely does last because I have been wearing this almost every day recently. The Clive Christian one also lasts for a very long time, but this one you can still smell on your skin even after several hours. The next fragrance that I have here is actually a little bit of a, I wouldn't call it controversial, but it's been a very hard one to wear despite the fact I love the scent. This is Frederic Marley Portrait of a Lady, and I think this one is a very well-known one both online and in person. When I went into the Frederic Marley store, everyone who was walking towards the store was asking to smell this scent, so it's very popular. So I wouldn't necessarily say that no one is going to know what you're wearing. I've actually just sprayed it and exactly what I thought would happen is happening, which is that I do find this to be, especially on the skin, however, so now it's diffusing out, it's okay, but when I spray this on my skin, it's just a little bit too much. I love the fragrance, I love how it smells, I love how it dries down, but I never quite can get to the dry down because when I spray this on, it just seems to be too intense for me. It can give me a headache or just make me feel a little bit sick. Again, it doesn't necessarily have anything that's too sickly sweet, and I have fragrances that are probably sweeter than this that I can handle. This isn't even actually sweet. It's not sweet at all. It's just the fact that it's a very intense perfume. So if you can handle something very intense, this is so good, and I'm hoping that with time I can lean back into it, because I have had fragrances in the past that have also been very intense, and then I've tried them again several years later and it's been absolutely fine. So I'm hoping maybe even this year I can get back into wearing this. If I were to describe it, I mean, Portrait of a Lady is a very good name for it because it does smell very ladylike, but in a very, it has a lot of depth. It's not, there are different sorts of ladylike scents. I would say the most prominent one is the very powdery feminine style, but then there's also this one which has a lot more depth and a lot more characteristic build to it. Again, I will put the notes up on the screen. The only thing about me filming this video is that I'm not going to be the best at describing all of the fragrances and the notes, because there are quite a few fragrances here. I haven't written down the notes for all of them because I didn't want to be reading off a script. I wanted to go more based off of how the fragrances make me feel, because I feel like when someone meets you for the first time, they're not really thinking, ooh, vanilla and tonka bean. They're thinking, you smell great, what is that fragrance? And that's exactly how I wanted to do this video, is more of a, my first, not first impressions, but how the fragrance is probably going to make you feel. Again, this one is very put together, very ladylike in a very bold way. However, it's just a little bit too potent for me personally, but I know a lot of people use this on a daily basis. The next fragrance is one that I used to talk about so much on my channel. If you've watched, there was a vlog that I filmed, which was a South of France vlog from 2 years ago, I believe. In that video, I was actually using this. I had just bought another bottle. This is the Thomas Kosmala No. 4 Après l'Amour. There's actually nothing in the bottle, so I just have to smell it off of here, but this is actually one that a friend introduced to me and told me to never share it with anyone, and yet again I shared it with people because it is so fantastic, and I felt like a lot of people didn't know and still don't know about this. If you are into Baccarat Rouge, I would highly recommend having a smell of this because it smells like a slightly more unique version of the Baccarat Rouge, which I know a lot of people will appreciate being able to find, because I personally do like Baccarat Rouge, or at least I used to like it a couple of years ago. I haven't really ever since. It's still really lovely, it's just you smell it absolutely everywhere most of the time. This smells a little bit more musky, a little bit richer and deeper than Baccarat Rouge fragrance, but I actually think this is the one that I do prefer. I always repurchase this at Harrods. I think it's actually one of the only places that you can pick it up. They have a few different numbers, so this was number 4. Maybe at one point I will repurchase it. It's just that I always like to play around with my fragrances, and I feel feel like Clive Christian has sort of taken the role of this. This was for when I wanted something a little bit more, you walk past someone and they're infatuated and they are like running after you. This one is a little bit more calm and collected. It smells incredibly good, but it's not the type where you're going to be running after someone. If you want that, this one is really good, but it is also very potent, not in the way of headache as Portrait of a Lady, although it can give some people a headache. I would say it's more of a, if I were in a lab putting together a toxin, but I don't think that actually sounds like this is a good thing. It just smells very, you need to kind of smell it to know what I'm talking about. Potent, but not in an overpowering way, but I don't think that actually makes sense. Speaking of calm and collected, this is just such an unproblematic one that I absolutely love. It's the Brunello Cucinelli perfume for her. I do also have the for him and it smells amazing. I would say that these fragrances are less unisex. I mean, you can go for it. However, I often don't wear it because it's one of those fragrances that is actually very masculine in a way that's, it's slightly hard to bring out any feminine notes in that fragrance. If I were to describe these fragrances, I would say picture Brunello Cucinelli and then picture it as a person. Well, obviously it is, but picture Brunello Cucinelli as a brand and then picture the ideal person who's walking inside and, you know, shopping and browsing. This is how I would describe it. This is honestly Brunello Cucinelli in a bottle for her. Anyone can actually wear them, but I do find that these are a little bit more specific. There's a reason they made it for him and for her, but anyone of course can choose whichever one they want. Again, similarly to Clive Christian, it's sort of a calm and collected. Actually, if I were to only have 2 fragrances in my collection for the rest of my life, I mean, I wouldn't pick, but I would probably say Clive Christian and Brunello Cucinelli. They work perfectly layered together, but also I would say I would use this one in the daytime and this one at night, and that would be my go-to signature fragrance. Of course, that's not something I would choose to do because I like to play around with different fragrances, but if you only wanted 2 in your collection that were very calm, collected, put together, I would say these 2 are amazing. Again, this is a very sort of elegant, put together, dressed well, the ideal Brunello Cucinelli woman. This is actually what I would say. Again, I'll put the notes up on the screen for anyone who wants extra detail, but as for how it makes you feel, it's that very welcoming, not someone who's in Brunello Cucinelli but is extremely rude. It's the other side of it, which is someone who's very calm and collected, confident in themselves, but also very warm, and if they know you, they're extremely, you know, they'll give you a hug. I don't know how I'm putting this together from a fragrance, but that's what I'm sort of getting from this one. There's 2 more here. Where's the other one? There's 2 more in here. This one is from Jo Loves, Amber, Lime and Bergamot. This one is very intense, but not, again, I don't think there's anything that makes me feel as sickly as the Portrait of a Lady. This is intense. In a sense, if I were to describe it, I know some perfumes describe themselves as intense. This is how I would describe this one. I wouldn't recommend this for anyone who wants a fragrance that doesn't smell too much like a fragrance. For example, in some of the other categories, I'll show you that there are fragrances that can seep into your skin and they kind of smell like a home scent, whereas this definitely, especially when you first spray it, it smells like who's just topped up on their fragrance. However, if you leave it for a few hours, it does seep into your skin and settles in very beautifully. I think the description actually on both of the Jo Loves and the Jo Malone perfumes, the description at the front of the bottle is pretty much what you're getting inside. I would just describe this as amber, lime and bergamot. It's very tasteful, unique. This is what I would say about all these, well, the majority of these fragrances is that they are very unique. I don't really feel like I've gone outside one day and ever smelt this on someone, but I would personally wear this at night, maybe with a black suit. It's a very powerful, confident scent, but I would highly, again, all of these you kind of have to go in and you have to smell. It's just me smelling this and telling you how they make me feel. Like always, you'll probably see with all the notes that there is probably something overlapping across all of these perfumes, and that's probably the thing that makes me like all of them. For sure, this one does stay on your skin for a very long time. Lastly, in this category, I've got one which I actually recently received, and this one is from Merit Retrospect. They've actually done it in a very interesting way where they've embossed it onto the bottle alongside the shape of this. It's really easy to hold. This one, I think they did describe it as elegant woman. This, I would say, is sort of like a little bit more of a lighter feminine version of Portrait of a Lady. I mean, they are 2 completely different fragrances. They don't smell the same at all, but it's that same sort of like depth as Portrait of a Lady. It's a lighter way, a little bit more easy to take. Elegant woman, put together, dresses well, looks effortless. This is how I would describe all of these fragrances, but in particular this one as well. Moving on to the next category, we have fresher fragrances, cleaner smelling fragrances. These are the type that I opt for straight after the shower, or if, for example, I want something that's a little bit refreshing. If I've just left Pilates, for example, at Nobu Pilates, they have The bathrooms, you can go, you can take a shower. This is what I would spray on afterwards, especially if I've had an early morning class. I usually want something that just smells fresh because that's the energy that kind of carries on throughout the day. The first one that I have is probably the more characteristic bold of them all. And when I say bold, it probably sounds like you need a lot of confidence to wear it, but that's not what I mean. I mean it in more of a, you can smell the depth. It smells more, there is more to smell. Sometimes with fresh fragrances, it's very surface level. It's just, oh, okay, you smell clean. But then with this one, it's like, you smell clean, but I can smell that at the base note or the middle notes, there's something intriguing, there's something warm, and that's what I mean when I describe a fragrance as bold. This one is Jo Malone Wood Sage and Sea Salt, and it's one of my favorite fresh fragrances, but for when I still want that woodiness and something a little bit more interesting, not just complete fresh. Over halfway with this bottle. I sometimes forget about this fragrance. I put it to the side, and then every time I wear it, I'm like, why don't I wear this more often? I do think a lot of people recognize this fragrance. I do think all the Jo Malone fragrances are quite memorable and a lot of people recognize them, especially fragrances like Lime Basil and Mandarin, Pomegranate Noir, which I actually really like as well. It really smells like you just had a little refreshment or something that almost smells like you just took a very quick shower and then came back to the restaurant table. This is what I would go for. I think in general it is fresh, but it's still very warm of a fragrance compared to some of the rest that I'm going to show you. This is actually a cologne. This next fragrance is actually an eau de toilette from Sicily, and I don't think this fragrance is very well known, but it's one that I absolutely love from the Le Rivet range, and this one is Daria. I have a small size of this, which is perfect for traveling with, but I have had the big size as well, which lasted me a really long time. Despite the fact it's an eau de toilette, it still lasts probably better than some of my others. This is a very fresh scent, very gingery, very cooling, fresh scent. I described this, I think I picked this up for the first time when I was in Monaco, and it takes me back to there every time I spray this. It just smells like a put together woman in the south of France or in Monaco, and I really do like it because it's a very sort of, again, this is the one I would probably opt for right after a Pilates class, because it's like, how do you smell that good after a whole Pilates class? Very fresh. There's no other way to describe it. It doesn't have any warmth to it. The only thing that is probably warming about it is the ginger, which you can smell straight away. But actually when it dries down on your skin, it's so beautiful and it's not so gingery. Especially if I mix this with Clive Christian, I get a mix of warmth, character and fresh, and it's just perfect combination. Whilst we're on the topic of Sicily, I have another fragrance here, which is called Isia. This is a very, again, I do think Sicily has mastered those very clean women fragrances. If you've actually seen any of their makeup or skincare, that's exactly the vibe that you get. You get a very elegant woman who's just selective. Now I can smell it. It's just kicked in and it smells really good, and it just puts a smile on my face. It's almost like you smell so clean that it's making me smile from across the room. That's what these fragrances are to me. It's quite hard to describe the actual notes of this. I think also smelling all these fragrances at the same time messes with my nose a little bit, but it's not too sweet. It's in a sort of like sweet, fresh way. Sweeter maybe than Daria, which is a little bit more of that gingery, spicy to the nose. This is a little bit sweeter, but not sickly sweet. I wouldn't put it in the sweet compartment. I would definitely still put it in the fresh. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more, not basic, but a little bit more unproblematic or not as niche, this is the Tory Burch Mystic Geranium. I'm not going to lie, I haven't sprayed this in a little bit of a long time, so that description that I just gave it might not be correct, but from what I remember, it's not a fragrance that I spray and I'm like, wow, this is niche, this is different to anything I've ever smelled before. It's just quite a simple, if you want something fresh and you want something that's very, you know, easy, this is what I would go for. If you're not looking for something that's so niche that you have to really think about what to mix with and all sorts of things, easy, simple geranium, it's exactly what you're getting. And if that's what you're looking for, this is perfect. I don't often opt for all the fresh fragrances anyways, but if I just want something that smells like geranium, or if you want to mix this with something that you know smells good with geranium, or when I say mix, I mean layer, this is perfect. And then this is one that I've spoken about before, and I could even put it in the bold characteristic fragrance collection. However, it's still quite a clean scent. It's not so much fresh, but it's definitely a clean scent. This is Argentum Everyman Eau de Parfum, and I really do love this, but I do think it's finished now. It's more of a, so this is actually a skin scent, which means that you're not supposed to spray this on natural fibers or on your clothes at all. This has to be sprayed onto your skin, and I actually also believe you can spray it into your hair, if I'm not wrong, because it doesn't have alcohol. This is alcohol and solvent free. Actually, the fragrance itself is really unique. Again, this one is empty, but if I were able to open it, it's a white milky liquid inside. What I like the most about this fragrance is, one, it lasts forever. It's so good. Well, I say it lasts forever. It definitely lasts until the following morning. I've sprayed this before on one morning after a shower, and the following morning when I was in the shower, I could still smell this. So it's really good, and it does give more of a home scent. If you're looking for a fragrance that doesn't smell like a fragrance, that's the thing about me. I prefer fragrances when they're at their base note, because that's when they smell a little bit more natural. They don't smell like you've just sprayed 10 sprays of perfume, where it just smells too potent. That's my slight issue with Portrait of a Lady. It's very overpowering in a room, whereas something like this is sort of a quiet and collected confidence, and I really love it. It's so unique. I haven't smelled this before, and I've spoken about before the packaging of Argentum. It comes with a talisman at the top. It does come with a paper version of the talisman, so that you can take this out, put the paper version so that you know which fragrance it is, and the talisman you can actually wear, and all of them have different meanings. If you're looking for a more unique fragrance to gift someone as well, I would highly recommend maybe stopping by Argentum and seeing which one of them is your favorite. Actually, in preparation for this video, I realized I have quite a few ouds for someone who doesn't often wear them. I didn't bring all of them into this video because some of them, it's quite hard to talk about them in a different way, and I didn't want it to be repetitive across all of them. Although they are all very unique in their own way, it was just hard for me to come up with a description for them. So I picked up two. These two definitely have a different description. This first oud that I have here is Oud for Greatness by Initio. This one is amazing. It's very different. It's very oud-like, and it's not one that I initially thought I would be drawn to. Definitely has more of a oud-like, and when I say that, I mean there are some ouds that don't smell as oudy. They are mixed in with other things that make them smell a little bit lighter. If you're looking for something that definitely smells like an oud, this is definitely it. But I do like it. I do think for me, I have to layer it because I'm not the type of person to just only wear oud. I think it's just a little bit too overpowering for me, considering the fact that it's not actually my number one option for fragrances. But sometimes I do like it layered on with something else that I really like. Then it creates something quite unique, and the oud acts as a warming point. Whereas if I just have the oud, it doesn't feel like it's reflecting my personality per se. And Initio has also some very unique and niche fragrances that you don't smell everywhere. This is just one of those that you have to almost smell it, because for me, I do find it really hard to describe oud. I find it hard to describe what I'm smelling, but I know that this one I really like. And then the next one I hope is an oud. It's from Fragrance du Bois, and they're also very well known for their ouds. I do have Rude Oud, Lovers, Sirène, and Voyage à Paris. I might have a few others, but this one is the first ever Fragrance du Bois fragrance I got, and it's called Cavotte. And it's still, I haven't sprayed it in a really long time, and I haven't worn it in a really long time, but I thought it was a really good one to bring in. If it is an oud, if it's not, I would still say it's quite similar to oud, but if it is oud, then there you go. I would say this is a little bit more versatile. It has a little bit more, when I say depth, it feels like there's more to smell. The only thing about Oud for Greatness is it feels very, this is what you're spraying and this is what you're going to get. It's not really going to develop into something else, except it does, especially being Initio, it does have layers to it, but I personally don't think I've taken the time to see what this develops into. However, this Cavotte already starts off as a very different plane. It smells a little bit almost fresh, a little bit sweet, very comforting. So I do feel like I can smell a little bit of oud. If it's not oud, then it's definitely something similar. The oud in here is bringing more warmth to it as opposed to being the entire fragrance, especially if you are looking to get into oud a little bit. Fragrance du Bois is a really good brand for it. If you're looking for something that's still a little bit lighter, I would highly recommend trying out Cavotte. And to finish off this video, we have two fragrances that are on the sweeter side. First one, I believe this is an eau de toilette from Givenchy, and this is L'Interdit. I've had this for a while actually, and I think I've gone in and out of this fragrance quite a bit. I think there was one year where it was all I would wear, mixed in with my Thomas Kosmala, and then I kind of switched it about. This is a very sweet, there's nothing else to explain about it. Actually, one of my friends wears this fragrance, so now it just smells like her. sweet, very feminine. It's not too sickly sweet, but it could get there if maybe you sprayed too much. I do think if you only do one spritz of this and you layer it with something else, you've got the opportunity to really bring in depth. If you just spray this all over, it can smell a little bit sickly sweet, but it's just nice to have in your collection, especially if you are someone who likes layering and doesn't just stick to just one fragrance. Then the next one that I have is very unique. It's from Penhaligon's and it's called All the Audacity. This is vanilla and incense and it says boldness in a bottle. So you would think that I would have put this in the bold category, but it's bold, but it's not bold for me. Categorize bold as something else. This has a very strong spray nozzle. I would say if you're someone who's looking for a vanilla fragrance similar to Victoria Beckham, so actually this could go in the bold category because it reminds me of the Victoria Beckham. Victoria Beckham is vanilla, maybe tonka bean mixed in with that tobacco. It's got that warmth. This is vanilla-y, but then it's got that incense, so it does, technically speaking, have that characteristic element to it. It's just very unique, and as someone, I personally don't like vanilla scents. I also don't like coconut scents. Those are the two things that I don't opt for. But if you are like me, not really into vanilla, but you do like something that just has something a little bit more, whether that's incense or a bit of oud or a bit of woodiness or a bit of smokiness or tobacco, this is something to go for because it almost smells like spicy vanilla. Actually, at the top of this it says use sparingly, potent concoctions, and actually, I mean, that's obviously just Penhaligon. This collection is supposed to be about concoctions, but actually the description that I had for the Thomas Cosmala perfume, that's what I was trying to say. It smells like a concoction. It's a very sort of like potent concoction scent to it. It has something to it that smells almost, I don't want to use the word medical, but it's just concoction-y, really unique and mystical kind of. And just like that, we've come to the very end of this week's video. This is slightly different to the usual, so hopefully you did find it helpful. I'm definitely no perfume reviewer. There are channels on YouTube that specialize in describing these perfumes, so it's not going to be the best description possibly that you've ever gotten. My way of doing it is describing how it makes me feel as opposed to going through all the notes and talking about where and how long they last for. I know that a lot of you will find that more important, but there are other ways to research that. I personally use Fragrantia or Fragrantia. On there you can look at all of the notes and there's some reviews on there that people have left. I think this video is more about gaining an idea of the different fragrances that I really like and that you might want to try out, as opposed to going in depth into the very nitty-gritty perfume world. That's a whole different world, and I do think there are other things that I probably specialize in better than fragrances and describing them. I really hope you enjoyed this week's video, and if you did, let me know in the comment section also any other videos that you might want to see. But with that being said, I hope to see you guys very, very soon in my next video.